Things Heard and Seen. Amanda Seyfried's Netflix movie all about ghosts and terrible husbands is not the kind of movie you can watch while playing a game on your phone. Based on a 400-page novel named All Things Cease to Appear by Elizabeth Brundage, this is not just a straightforward ghost story, it's also a relationship drama, an art history lesson, and a theological discussion of the afterlife. It's a dense, complicated, and nuanced narrative, with a lot of characters and moving parts. And somehow, it manages to cram that complex story into a 2-hour movie. What starts as a saga about an unhappily married couple who move into a haunted house grows into an existential horror with an interesting ending to say the least. Fear not though, we're here to break it down for you. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button for more videos like this. With that said, let's get started. The year is 1980, and Catherine Clare, played by Amanda Seyfried, has no desire to leave her life as an artist living in Manhattan. But when her husband George, played by James Norton, gets a job teaching art history at a small private college in the Hudson Valley, she dutifully uproots her life and she moves with George and their young daughter Franny into a big, creepy house in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't take long for Catherine to discover that her new house is haunted. She finds an old Bible dating back to the 18th century, tracking the family lives that have ended of the previous homeowners. A lot of those deaths seem to be wives who were deemed damned by their husbands. It seems that the spirits of these wives are still hanging around the house, doing things like turning on the night light in Franny's room, and causing a bad smell of gasoline to come from the garage. Over the course of the movie, we slowly learn that a lot of people in this small town believe in ghosts and spirits. Even George's boss at the school loves a real-life artist named George Innes, who was very spiritual and superstitious. One Innes painting, The Valley of the Shadow of Death, will be a recurring theme in the film. Innes and the townspeople are followers of a real-life 18th-century Swedish theologian named Emanuel Swedenborg, who claimed that he could converse with angels, demons, and other spirits. The wives who lived in Catherine's home were also followers of Swedenborg, and their husbands disapproved. After the wives died, mysteriously, in their homes, it is implied their husbands killed them. The spirits in Catherine's house are there to help her, not to hurt her. This theory is confirmed when Catherine learns that the most recent former owner of her home were the parents of the 2 neighboring boys, who had been helping Catherine with handiwork and babysitting. The boys' dad slipped his whole family a sedative, shot all of their cows, and then gassed the house by closing all of the windows and leaving 2 trucks running in the garage. That explains the fumes in the house. The husband and wife, whose name was Ella, did not survive, but their boys did. Catherine then realizes that the ring she found in the house belonged to Ella. Meanwhile, through all this, Catherine's husband George reveals himself to be a pretty terrible person. He cheats on his wife with a student, and we learn he forged a letter of recommendation to get the teaching position at the college. Finally, it is revealed at a dinner party with George's family that the seascape paintings George told Catherine he painted himself were actually painted by his late cousin, whose identity George essentially stole. When George's supervisor Floyd, played by F. Murray Abraham, finds out about the forged letter, he gently tells George that he will have to report him to the school. So George ends Floyd by drowning him. On his way back home, he runs into a friend of Catherine's named Justine, played by Rhea Seehorn. Justine, who already doesn't like George, sees him soaking wet, and George realizes that she will suspect him when the authorities find Floyd's body. So George runs Justine off of the road, causing her car to crash, and putting her in a coma. Things are quickly spiraling out of control for George, and there is still one person who knows George has been lying: his wife, Catherine. At first, it looks like George might get away with his actions. Floyd's death is ruled an accident, and George is offered Floyd's position as head of the department at the college. Meanwhile, George concocts a plan to end his wife. He drugs Catherine's protein drink with a sedative. She tries to escape with her daughter, but the sedative hits her, and she falls unconscious. George brutally ends Catherine with an axe while she is unconscious. The next day, George tells the babysitter that his wife is sick and not to be disturbed. He gives himself an alibi by going to work, then reports the act to the police. Here, we get the scene that opened the movie: George seeing blood dripping from the ceiling, and running with his daughter across the grounds. The police suspect George is guilty, but they don't have any proof, until Justine wakes up from her coma. How does she wake up? With a little push from the spirits of Ella and Catherine. It seems Catherine has joined the team of vengeful wives ended by their husband in that creepy house. George, realizing he is screwed, flees on a sailboat. As he sails through a storm, the sky looks like it's being consumed by hellfire, while Ella and Catherine whisper about the gates of hell. An upside-down cross appears in the sky. The boat lights on fire, and George basically sails into the gates of hell, imitating the Innis painting, The Valley of the Shadow of Death. In the final shot of the film, the dead wives say in unison, "Because of you, we are joined in spirit. Because of you, our powers grow." From tiny drops, to an endless sea. The camera zooms in on a picture of the original owners of the house, and we see that the original wife is wearing the ring too, meaning it was passed down from the wives of the house. There is undoubtedly a lot to keep track of, but the things heard and seen ending does make sense if you track all of the details. In an interview with Decider, writers, directors Shari Berman and Robert Pulcini further explained the things heard and seen ending. Pulcini said, "I hate to put a nail into people's theories because I think there is an enigmatic element to the end of it. But I think what is interesting is that you have this painting that's a transition to the afterlife. George Innis, who did this painting, was this devotee of Swedenborg. This was his belief system. And he painted the moment where we transition into the afterlife. That's what he wanted to express." One of the original husbands in the house decided that his wife was damned because she was a heretic in his eyes. She was exploring ideas that he didn't approve of. So it's like, who gets to damn someone? Who is the damned in this story, and how does the universe correct? I think it's actually a very topical notion as we're seeing this kind of cultural revolt going on with toxic people who have gotten away with things for so long getting their comeuppance. There's something very satisfying about this shift of who's damned actually in this story and who has the power to do that. I think there's a spiritual power, feminine power in this movie that really delivers the ending. He added that he does believe the spirits of the wives are delivering George to hell in that final scene on the water. They're definitely directing the action in the end, yes. I mean, you can hear them and they're delivering George to his rightful place. Berman agreed, and added, "It's a kind of metaphor for all the women who have been abused by husbands and fathers and preachers, and teachers and all the business people and producers and all that. Maybe not in their lifetime, but in the metaphysical sense of eternity having some kind of say, or power." So there you have it. The ended wives of the house, including Catherine, brought George to justice by delivering him to hell. And if you're still confused, Berman suggested watching the film a second time. Going further to say, one of the things we made this movie for is watching it twice. I love movies that make me watch them twice to catch things. See how Justine gets out of her coma. There's a line with the power of the women throughout. I personally also thought from seeing the ending, that it could also mean his life would become a living hell, with Justine now awake to deliver justice, and not to literally deliver him to hell per se. Well, we see what the writers, directors meant in actuality, but I'd love to see what you thought the ending meant otherwise. With that in mind, make sure to subscribe to see more videos like this and leave a like if you found value in this video, and choose one of these videos for more content. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.